Hello my friends, welcome back to another painting tutorial to easy oil painting. Basic simple oil painting techniques to help you along the way, and I hope they are helping. Okay, this week I am going to paint some rocks. I did promise someone I would paint some rocks, so I found a lovely little picture of some nice rocks in sunlight, in a little bit of a stream, close up. So I think you'll like this one. If you're having trouble painting rocks, kind of close-up rocks in a stream down in front of you, and you're having a little bit of difficulty kind of figuring out what colours to use and how to create the shapes and the textures and all of that, this might be an interesting tutorial for you. You might learn something from this, which I hope you do. So rock painting, I have a little canvas behind me here, 16 by 12. I have my colours laid out on my palette, and this is a nice little eye-catching scene. Lovely colours, dramatic sunlight hitting the rocks as well. So if you're interested, stay tuned. I will be right back in just a moment, and we'll have a bit of fun with this painting. Don't go anywhere. All right, everyone, let's go and have a bit of fun with this painting. There is a reference photograph. Now, I think you'll find that quite interesting. It may look very complicated. Lots of different colours going on. Lots of light, bright, sunny colours, and some nice cool colours as well. And even the sketching part, you may find a little bit tricky here and there, but I'm going to try and simplify it for you and make a lovely eye-catching scene out of this. And it's just painting rocks, okay? It doesn't have to be difficult. You can make it difficult, but we are going to simplify it. And let's see if we can just create that scene on canvas, even something similar. It doesn't have to be exact, all right? So let's start with our colours. I'll tell you what I have. A nice colourful palette today. Titanium white, Naples yellow, magenta, cadmium red, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cadmium yellow, lamp black, and phthalo blue. And I'm going to start with a sketch, just to get some reference points. Yes, come on. This rock down here comes up and it kind of goes off like that. I just want to get some kind of quick lines, just for some very rough lines. This is a bit too far out now, isn't it? And it goes down and sort of disappears. This one comes down like so. Then we have another one which comes out like this, and it turns like so. And we're going to just do that. Very, very loose sketching, all right? Very loose. I'm not going to try and, get these absolutely perfect. I'm really not. I just want a very kind of a loose impression, really. That's all I want. There we go, and we can have maybe one. These are going to be kind of slightly fuzzy now, all right? They're going to be slightly fuzzy as they go off into the background. You don't have to make them fuzzy, but I think it might be quite nice if they were a little fuzzy. I think it might just add to the painting. I think that's all I need. That's it. I'm going to simplify the water. Let's start. Right, I'm going to grab a big brush, any big brush at all. And let me just fix the exposure on this so it should stay focused pretty much all the time, all right? I hope it does. I have some thinners, linseed oil and turpentine. I did prime this once very lightly. I hope it's dry properly. It feels dry. Let's mix a very soft blue for up here. Let's get some titanium white. Let's go right into that. Some phthalo blue. And a touch of lamp black. I'm going for a very soft kind of a grey sort of a blue, all right? Let me just have a look at this. Now, I think it needs to be a little darker, just a little. And I might take a touch of magenta as well. There is a reason for me wanting to make it very dark up on top. I want the light of the stones to really jump out. Now, if this is very pale and light going off into the background, they won't show up as much. So I want to make this nice and dark and rich. I'm just going to simplify that background up there now, okay? Let me show you. I'm not going to paint in all those rocks and the bank and all of that kind of stuff up at the top. I'm going to leave that. Just a simple, straightforward water coming down into the scene. All right? Nice and simple and straightforward. Let's just soften it across. Now we need to make it thicker down lower because that paint is not quite thick enough. Some black again, a little bit of blue, a little touch of magenta. Let me just thicken up this here. Nice thick paint, that's what you want. And I'm just kind of scraping. You know, what I could have done was just oiled up here with some linseed oil on its own. I could have done that as well, but it doesn't matter. It's only a simple background I'm going for, that's all. Nice and simple. Let's maybe add a little bit of darkness up there, just a touch. Some black, a little touch of blue. It could be just sort of as it's going off into a river bank or something up there. Maybe a touch more blue. Make it more blue. Nice rich blue. Nice thick paint. And I'm just going to kind of flick it along. Again, I'm only kind of trying to suggest something here. That's all I am. That's all I'm doing. I'm trying to suggest a little something going off up into the distance. We will soften all of this out with our blender brush as well. But let's just kind of give it a little bit of movement. You see what I mean? A slight bit of movement. That's all I want. I'll dry my brush quickly and just go over this very lightly. Look. Just like that. Now, there we go. I'm going to start making it richer all the way down in here. And I don't know if I'm going to get this tutorial done in this one tutorial. I might have to come back for a part 2. I know you enjoy when I finish one in real time, but these rocks, I really want to take my time with the rocks and do them nicely. And I want to show you properly. I don't want to be rushing because I know what it's like when you're trying to learn something and someone is rushing through it. It can be frustrating. So for the sake of teaching you properly, I'm going to take my time with the rocks. I'm not going to go blasting through them trying to get it all finished in 60 minutes, if you know what I mean. Some of you may agree with that, some may not, but I think it will help you more in the long run if I just take my time and try and do this right for you, just to help you along with these rocks, because, you know, learning how to paint rocks can be very daunting. It can be very frustrating sometimes as well. Trying to get them right and then they go wrong and all of that, it can be very frustrating. And that can turn a lot of painters off. It really can. And I find sometimes when I'm looking on YouTube and stuff like that, I find it very difficult to come across a specific tutorial, maybe on just painting rocks. A lot of these tutorials these days are very sort of time-lapsed and nobody talks, nobody explains anything to you. I find it very, very frustrating and annoying. So that's why when I started my YouTube channel way back, I said to myself, I'm going to make this channel very honest and very open and just to the point, you know, and try and teach people basics of painting and encourage people slightly, you know, try and give someone a little bit of encourage goes a long way, I think. So that's my take on all of this. Now, a bit of pink in here, a little bit of magenta, and then we come down to a sort of a greeny shade of blue down here. So let's take Phaylo blue, touch of cadmium yellow. That should give us a nice greeny sort of a blue. I'm keeping these colours kind of quite thin initially, okay? Bit more green into that. I will kind of add lights and darks into all of this now very soon, alright? For instance, let's take some blue and some black right now, and in under the rock, let's just pop a little blue and black in here and there. Okay? Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, look, it's just, we're just beginning our colours. We're just kind of starting on some of the colours, that's all. Nice and dark and behind this light. We'll have lots of light in here later. Now, I'll clean my brush. I'm going to go to a smaller brush. I'm going to try a nice small flat brush, okay? It's a sort of a medium size brush, and I'm going to just start adding some phthalo blue with lots of white and a hint of magenta. Lots of thick paint now, and I want to just start adding little touches of that colour here and there, and I just want to let this fade off up into the distance, okay? Again, just to create a bit of movement in the water, that's all. A little bit of movement, a bit of interest, and leave it just disappear off up like that, okay? Very simple, side to side movements. I'm going to come down around here and do the very same. A little bit more of a rich blue here for this, phthalo blue with a little white. I'm just going to kind of pop it. You might even need more phthalo blue than that. There we go, nice rich phthalo blue, just in around here and there. And that rich phthalo blue will just give it a kind of a lift, okay? That's what I want to do, is just give the water a lift, a nice kind of a highlight. So phthalo blue is perfect for that. Now we could take a bit of white with phthalo blue, and we can just add some little ripples here and there. And because this is all wet and wet now, you may find this a little difficult, but I actually prefer wet and wet. I'll be completely honest with you. I like the wet and wet feeling. So I just find for mixing and blending together, it just makes life so much easier. I'm just kind of wiggling my brush now, creating little wiggles. That's what I'm going to call them. They're little wiggles. I'll take some magenta and some white. I'm going to just pop a little bit of pink in up around here. Soft shades of pink going through this will really calm the painting down. It'll calm down the colours, okay? Whenever you're painting streams and rivers and things like that, try and add a little bit of a soft pink in here and there. You can see how it just sort of calms down the painting, and it makes it a little bit more pleasing to look at. That's all it is really. Okay, I'm going to stop that. I'm going to go back into a nice dark, rich turquoise, phthalo blue, cadmium yellow. Just a lot more blue. Touch of white. And we can add a very slight hint, maybe a bit more white actually. And a very slight hint of a nice kind of a green popping through here and there as well. It may not be so prominent in the painting, but I can kind of see, I just want to make it a bit more prominent than what's in the photograph. You can't see much on the photograph. I'm just going to keep it kind of a bit stronger than what's in the photograph. I'm going to take some black and some phthalo blue on its own. I'm just going to go in here and just bring out this reflection of the rock just a little bit more. Just want to kind of bring it out a little bit more, that's all. And you can see the way I'm just kind of wiggling the lines around in little circles. That does help give the impression. In here, we have a lot of darks going on inside here, don't we? Let's just put a lot of little flicks, look. Little flicks like that. They may not look like much now, but when the painting is finished, your eyes will naturally be drawn to all of these things. All of these little wiggles. That's all they are, little wiggles. And once we put in highlights and all that kind of stuff, it will make a huge difference. So just, you know, keep an open mind with all of this. You know, it's very early days. We still have a lot to do. Okay, now, coming over here, it goes up into this brown rock, doesn't it? You see the way it merges up into the brown rock over there? Let's see what we can do. to achieve that effect. Let's take some burnt umber and some magenta, tiny touch of black. And let's just start, maybe a touch of Naples yellow, look, that'll brighten the whole thing up, won't it? I'm going to just go up roughly, and then I'm going to take plenty of magenta in this. A browny magenta, a pinky brown, okay? And let's just soften that down into the water. Look, and you're merging all the colours together. You're picking up bits of blue as well, look, bits of blue, and you're bringing it up here into that brown. So all the colours are kind of mixing in nicely together. You can see how that just transitions nicely now from one up to the other. That's quite nice. We're almost ready for our rocks. I'm going to leave the main area until the very last, okay? This big bright area in here, I want to leave that to last. I want to focus on these rocks and get these in. So I'm going to move to a slightly bigger brush. And filling in rocks like this, let's just keep it simple. Looking at the colour, I'm going to go for a medium shade first. I'm going to try some burnt umber, Naples yellow, magenta. Now I think as a medium shade, that's probably nice. So I'm going to fill everything, well, most of them in with this colour. And once I've that done, I can then start adding lights and darks. So that's what I would say to you when you're painting rocks, okay? If there's like a cluster of rocks together, I would always paint the rocks in a kind of a medium shade of what they are. And then add lights and darks to that. Now I am going to just kind of leave the darker sections for a moment, okay? We have a nice one here. This kind of comes up and this pushes back. I'm also going to leave the lights, the very bright colours. I'm going to leave those as well. So let's just fill in most of this area with a kind of a nice medium, soft, browny shade. Take a bit more magenta, maybe a touch of black, and a touch of burnt sienna as well, just to kind of warm things up a little bit and darken things up a little bit. Burnt sienna with some black. Go in here and just kind of go around. You see the way I'm keeping my shades separate, my rocks, and I'm trying to separate each individual rock slightly. That's basically what I'm trying to do, okay? And it goes into a dark one just together, down in here, like that. Now, burnt umber, burnt sienna, Naples yellow, and we can put this in. I know this is more rich and kind of a yellowy, but it's okay, we can still fix that. Put in the dark shades. So you can see now what I'm doing. I'm just going along, putting in darks and mediums and keeping them separate just with a little line, you see, a little bit of white line just to keep them separate. So you can begin to differentiate between each rock. I'll take a little bit of burnt umber and black and just put in the shadow of this one over here. Okay, you can see now how rough, this is all just rough work, and I'm not doing all these different shades on purpose. This is kind of what the brush is picking up on the canvas. I'm just trying different things, you know what I mean? Naples yellow with black and brown and siennas and all that kind of stuff. I'm just kind of adding different shades very kind of randomly, really. Let's take some more Naples yellow. Put some Naples yellow in here, look. And let's go over and stop there. All right, so that's that fella there. And painting rocks really is just light and darks. Everything in painting rocks is just about lights and darks. And getting your darks nice and dark is key for me. I think you need to have nice strong darks in order for your highlights to really jump out. So that's this last one here now. We have this one over here. Let's have a go off of this. This now is more of a deep bluey, browny kind of a grey shade, isn't it? Let's try Phaylo blue, magenta. You could try a kind of a purpley colour first, look, if you want. And just fill it in with a purpley shade. Go up like that. Adding a little touch of black perhaps. We're just worried about getting the shapes in, that's all I want to do. Scrape it in like that. For now. We can even go bigger with that if you want, but there's absolutely no rush. Let's take our time. Let's go up a bit higher with that. And over. Again, I'm not copying this exactly as it is. I'm just making my own interpretation of what's there. I'm going to start with this rock here, so I'm going to show you how to create that kind of light and dark and all of this, okay? I'll go for a small flattish brush, a medium kind of a shape, okay, or a medium size. I'm going to do all my lights and darks with this brush. Let's start off with some darks, okay? Burnt sienna and a little black, okay? Just out of curiosity, let's try it. Let's go and put in this dark over here, look. Just look at the photograph, copy what's there. If you think it's not dark enough, let's just grab a little bit of black and some magenta. I'm keeping the colours warm on purpose by adding pinks, okay? So, we have that dark shade of the rock. Then we're going to just start kind of lightening up as we go. So into some magenta. Let's take some Naples yellow with magenta and black. That gives us a nice soft pinky shade. So I'm going to just draw the line very roughly here. Look, you see the way it turns. Take a bit of white. And I'm just going to go like this. And just start lightening it. So it's coming over now and it's starting to lighten. Let's take some white Naples yellow. Let's go up here and start popping in that light, okay, up there. And then comes down, doesn't it? It softens down into this one here. I'm just going to simply just sort of dab in lots of random ways. You see what I mean? Very, very kind of random. I'll try some magenta with some cadmium red and Naples yellow. That should give us some interesting pinky shades, shouldn't it? You see what I mean? Keeping it warm makes all the difference, doesn't it? Then we have this rich area inside. Cleaning my brush again. Taking some Phaylo blue and some magenta. And I'm going to just add Phaylo blue with magenta. That's maybe a little bit purpley, so let's take a touch of black from something. And let's just go along and soften that down. We can go up a bit more. And I'm just kind of roughly softening them together where they kind of meet. Okay? Very, very roughly. Very loosely. I don't want to make this look like a photograph. I really don't. I'm taking some burnt sienna and burnt umber. And I'm going to just kind of soften along this line here and go up into them as well. You see? Just soften everything out. You can use a palette knife for this as well, by the way. If you want to be really, really fast about it, you could by all means just use a palette knife. That would work as well. But sometimes I like to just work like this with a brush in a painting. There's something very therapeutic about working like this, especially on rocks. It becomes very therapeutic. I'm going to move over to the nice bright side. And I want to show you about highlighting shadows. Now, if you look at the photograph, you'll see there's a beautiful rich yellowy colour here, but under this rock there's also a hint of a warm kind of sunlit colour. I think it's reflected from one of these rocks over here in underneath there. So I wanted to show you how to get that effect. Before I do, I'm just going to darken around here with some black, a little touch of cadmium red, and maybe just up along here as well. You see, just adding hints of dark shades and softening them out, creating a bit of texture on the rock as you do it. And then let's just go for some black in here, look, right down low, a little bit of black, and then it softens out into that dark reflection. So now the two merge together, don't they? Okay, let's get on and do that light. I could use a different brush, I could use a palette knife. I think I might try it with the brush first. If it doesn't work, we'll try the palette knife, okay? Come on, let's try it. Cadmium yellow, little cadmium red, touch of burnt sienna. Let's pick that colour and let's just go like this. You see, the problem with the brush is the brush mixes with the colour that's already there, and you tend to get a green. So that's why I was saying a palette knife usually is better for this kind of work. I might have to go to a palette knife, my friends. But I could just take some cadmium red, a little cadmium yellow with sienna, and just come down here and add a little bit of a highlight in underneath there, look. I'm just going to dab the brush ever so gently. You see that highlight we have? It's just a nice warm kind of a highlight, isn't it? Let's get a palette knife. Now, I understand this is probably coming along or coming across very complicated for you. I do completely understand, but if we just focus on this one rock, okay, you then have no trouble whatsoever doing the other rocks, because the process is pretty much the same for all of the rocks. You understand? So you're basically just copying what you've already done. That's all it is. No, that's not bad, really. Could try a bit more of an orangey shade, a bit more cadmium yellow in there, and give it a bit of a stronger highlight, let's say. And finally, some cadmium yellow with white. Just a little, and pop a little on just the corner maybe. It's kind of, it's trying to suggest that it's really catching the sunlight. And I think that works. Now up along the top, I want to take a bit of blue and white. Let's take some, we have some here already, look. Grab some of this, just go up along the top with some blue and some white. And add a bit. And you can follow it down. You can kind of scrape it down, you can, you know, add little bits of texture here and there, look. It's completely up to yourself. But if you really want to go to town on these rocks, this is what I would do. And then where they meet, look, just kind of swirl them in together with your palette knife. Soften them slightly so it looks like it is one rock and not just two separate pieces. So you're softening one into the other. Now, I'd be happy enough with that. I'd be happy just to leave that alone. But you could go an extra step and just take a small pointy brush, get some black, and just add a suggestion of a little detail perhaps. Just small little suggestions. Look, little cracks, bits of this, bits of that. And I'm going to call that one finished. That's one rock finished. The rest of these will be a lot more basic, I promise, don't you worry. Let's move on and do some of the other ones. These will be a bit more basic, okay? Let's go into some darks. Let's get some dark colour. I'm going to try some black and some cadmium red perhaps. Let's go in and strengthen some of these darker shades. I will also darken this one here. Okay, like that. We'll do some burnt sienna for some of the fronts, and this is where I start softening the darks into the sides of the just lighter sides. Look, just by dabbing across like that, and it helps turn the rocks a little bit easier. Do you know what I mean? It's not as sharp. So let's get a bit of cadmium red and soften in here as well. So I'm going to start just by putting some cadmium red and burnt sienna there. I'm going to do another bit just around the front of this one here. Again, cadmium red, burnt sienna. This one, I'm going to warm that as well. Go right up there, and you can see where it kind of comes across and turns. So I'll just draw a line across and I'll soften it there. Then I'll get some lighter shades, burnt sienna, cadmium red, and I'm going to just kind of soften across and turn. Turn it slightly, you see. I'm not going to do the green a while. I think I'll leave that a little while, just a little while, okay? I am going to start lightening some of these. Let's start putting there's some lovely highlights in some of these. They're a very bright, soft, kind of a mauvey, bluey shade. Let's get some white, phthalo blue and magenta. I'm going to start with this nice thick paint, and I'm going to go up and start putting on, you see, because there's magenta in this kind of a mauvey shade, it mixes beautifully with the brown, because with the pink and the brown mixing together slightly, perfect combination. You get no muddiness, it just fits together very nicely. You see what I mean? And this one there as well, we can lighten this. I'm just swinging my brush around in sort of random effects, you know, trying to just go with the direction of the rock also. That's very important, because that shows, you see the way the rocks turn here, this one turns. I'm going to simply just kind of turn my brush and bring it down, look. Flick it down and turn as it comes down. And that will give you the impression of the rock just turning and falling down. You see? Just remember, you can stop the video, you can pause the video, take your time with all of this. There's no hurry, you don't have to rush through it like I'm doing it. I just have a habit of rushing through paintings like this. This for me is taking my time, I'll be quite honest. I know you won't believe that, but this for me is taking my time. I'm normally very quick going through tutorials and my paintings in general. I'm normally very, very quick. I go through them very quickly because it's nice sometimes to take a break from that and take our time painting a little subject like this. Just take it nice and slow, and you know, just no rush whatsoever. We've all the time in the world. Let's just take our time. Okay. They don't look too bad now, do they? Some nice little rocks. I am going to darken just in around the back of that there. Give me some burnt umber, some burnt sienna, touch of black. I just want to kind of darken in here slightly. These darks will make the lights jump out much better, you see. I'm just going to push it up and sort of merge it into the rock, you see, allowing the brush to sort of just dance around. That kind of a way. Take some black and some burnt umber. It's very dark down in here, look. So I want to make this nice and dark. And I'm also going to highlight these later with some purple, and I'll show you that as well. Okay, so let's see where we're going with this now. Let's bring this one in around the back here like that. And this one joins in here and gets dark as well, softening up. And I'm going to darken down here as well. Again, soften it back up. I'm going to highlight with a bit of red and black this one just here, and I'm going to darken up here. It's just about going around looking at the photograph and just, you know, look at your photograph all the time. Just keep looking where you see those colours. Try and be as close to those colours as you can. That's what I say, but I never try to be perfect with my mixes. I always just, you know, mix a similar shade and see what happens. That's the way I like to paint. It's just the way I like to paint. I'm going to get some cadmium red, a little cadmium yellow and Naples yellow. And we have a kind of a brightish-ish colour. I'm going to just cut in front of that there, look. And just start putting that bright colour on, softening it back down into those colours, look. Merging them together. See? Let's take some more of that colour and go on the front of this. Again, I clean my brush regularly in between doing this, because with oils, your brush is going to get quite dirty. Alright, so just remember that. Cadmium yellow, burnt sienna, a little bit of cadmium red. It's quite yellowy, but again, I'm not going to mix it too much, you see. I'm just going to drag it down and kind of leave it. And I'm not trying to get these colours perfect first time either. I know I'm going to have to add on extra lights later on with all of this, okay? I know that. So I'm not going to try and get all of this absolutely perfect first time, because that would be very difficult. So I'm just kind of getting the base, sort of the basic colours in. And I know then I can add some with a palette knife or whatever later on. But just getting these right, just for now, just the basic underpaintings of them. That's what I'm trying to do. Just to start lightening the painting ever so slowly as you go. So for here, for example, look, I'm going to start with this kind of soft colour, all right? Like that. And you can start adding to it. Once you have the kind of basic shade done, you can then start adding to it. So for example, let's take some cadmium yellow into that rich colour. Then start adding your bright shades. You see? Now I'm going to use a fan brush for a moment, because I want to show you how to create that sort of stippled, you see that kind of stippled look we have. I want to show you how to create that. It's quite simple. Let's take a bit of phthalo blue and some magenta, maybe a touch of black. Now with that and a touch of thinners, let's start dabbing. It's quite bluey now, this, okay? But you can see how it lifts the shadow up. It brings out the shadow, doesn't it? Okay, I'll go like that. Now I'm going to start warming it with some cadmium red and then a little touch of white. Then I'm going to start with the highlighted side. You can see I'm kind of stippling it all together now very gently. Clean the brush, take some white and some of this nice mauve. And just stipple that nice light mauve here and there. So you can see we have that stippled effect on the rock, don't we? Now you can kind of jump around on the canvas a bit if you want. You could add a little bit here, look. Just again, it gives you that rough textured look. And we could go up here, add a little bit of it up the side there, a little bit of it there. Again, it's just creating a rough surface, a very rocky surface, you see what I mean? And I think it does work. It actually does. It creates a beautiful texture on the rock just by very gently dabbing with a fan brush. It's so easy, really. What I would say to you is just, if you're trying to follow these tutorials along, if you're trying to kind of follow this one, just pause the video every few minutes and just stop, try a little bit, and then continue on. That's what I would say. Just try to take your time with it. Don't try to paint as quickly as me, because, you know, I tend to kind of rush through, as I said earlier. But you just stop and take your time. Now I'm going to take a fan brush with a little magenta and Naples yellow. And go for this very lovely warm pink on some of these. You see, I'm just varying the shades of the rocks, just here and there. And maybe a little touch of it here and there. I don't want them all looking like this. Not all of them. Right, we could do the same for the bright side of that rock here. See that very bright side? Let's try cadmium yellow with some white and some Naples yellow and a touch of magenta. Now this might not work, but I would like to just try it and see. That's not bad, is it? Let's try a touch of cadmium red in there and more yellow. Let's try and get more of an orangey shade. Scrape it on there, and we can scrape it on here. We can also get a very bright colour on this. I mean, you can see how I'm using the fan brush even for a lot of this. So that's a possibility as well. I'm going to go to my palette knife. I just want to get some real rich colours with the palette knife. I find the only way of getting some really bright, rich colours is by using the palette knife, because it really just deposits the paint nice and thickly, doesn't it, on the painting. You know, with a brush is fine, but I think the palette knife just gives you that bit more of an impact, doesn't it? So a nice rich orangey shade, that's really going to kind of bring the sunlight into the painting. And I go nice and orangey down in here with this, perhaps more of a red shade of orange, but nonetheless it's nice and bright. And maybe a little hint of it just along here, like so. And there could be a slight hint of it catching on some of these as well, just some of the cracks. Okay, perhaps one or two up around there. So you're just kind of you're helping the composition of the painting then by bringing some of those colours from one rock onto another. I think it does work with the composition. It helps tie everything together. So that really is, you know, the basic rocks done. I'm going to add some kind of, you know, darks and shadows and all that kind of stuff later on anyway. But I think in general I have the basic shapes of the rocks to what I want. You see what I mean? You can add little things like this anytime, but I just like to focus on getting just the basic shapes done, I'm kind of being happy enough with them. So I'm just going to start putting in some of this lovely green we have in there. Let's take some cadmium yellow and a touch of phthalo blue, and we get a nice rich green in here. Like that. And they're going to go nice and dark just down at the base. Nice rich dark, kind of a blacky green, okay? And we take a bit of black, pop a little bit of black in there. So that really stands out against the lovely bright colour in front. Then I'm going to use a palette knife. I think the best way to get these colours in is with a palette knife. I think it's the most, you know, eye-catching way of getting colour on rocks like this. So let's mix a nice bright green, some cadmium yellow, a little bit of white and a touch of blue. I think that should give us a nice bright green. Let's have a look. Ah, there we go. Let's just have a bit of fun. Let's just kind of dab it and scratch it and flick it and all that kind of thing. It's just to create an impression of this, just this light, bright bush popping out from behind the rocks, isn't it? Okay. And there we are. Then all we have to do is just cut that across underneath again, just to bring it away from the rocks. Just look, cut in front of it, just to show it off a little bit more against those greens. And I want to make this a bit curvier, don't we? It's a little bit kind of flat at the moment, isn't it? It should be a little bit more of a curve on there. Okay, that will do. It's absolutely fine. My friends, I call this part one finished. I just want to take my time. I do apologise if I went a little bit quick through some of this, but I do tend to get carried away in a painting. I kind of lose sight. Now I'm taking a bit of blue and white, look. I do tend to kind of lose track that I'm actually doing a tutorial sometimes, and you know, that's my fault. Sometimes I forget that the camera is even recording. I waffle on and I paint. Maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing, I don't know, but I hope it's helping you in some of your, you know, difficulties with painting. I hope you're getting some help from all of this. Please let me know if you are, because that's the whole point of this channel. Now you see I'm just adding little highlights of light blue here and there. And I might put a purple in some of the shadows. So you see this bit of purple I made here, look. A little bit of purple into some of the darker shadowy colours. And that just, again, it will lift the shadows out. Especially just there in that dark one. I think that's a little bit dark. So maybe take a little bit of pink or purple or something and look, just pop a little bit of it in there. Just bring it to life just a little. Now my friend, I'm going to call this part one finished. In part two we only have this lovely kind of spray coming up in here. I think that's going to be fun, and we can work on these a little bit more if you want. We could add another one or two further up and just soften them off into the distance. That's another way we could do it. But we also have this one to finish down here. That's it. I'm going to call that part one finished. Let me just move the camera back. I hope that's helped you so far. Let me just fix this camera now. Even from a distance, that doesn't look too bad, does it? You know, it's a nice composition of rocks. Let me just brighten that for you. There we go. And there we are. Part 1 has been completed. Part 2 coming right up. I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Let me know if you have learned a little bit about rocks, and just, you know, what I would say to you is to keep it nice and simple, right, for me to explain this to you is paint a medium shade of the colour that you see. So if you're painting rocks that are grey, okay, and you have highlights and then you have kind of blacky shades on the rock, I would paint the rock completely grey. Then I would take a darker shade, paint the shadow sides with that darker shade, and soften it across, and then paint your brighter shade on the highlights and soften that into the middle colour. That's in principle what I would do when I'm painting. And then you can finish the rock with your palette knife or your fan brush or something like that, just for little highlights with the lights and the darks as well. So you know, there's a few different ways of painting rocks, but what I would say to you is don't be afraid, don't become scared when you see a painting with lots of rocks. If you can master just the one rock, if you can get that one rock just right, every other rock is pretty much the same, if you know what I mean. So just don't get confused and frightened when you see 20 rocks in a painting. Just take your time, go across one at a time, and try to have a bit of fun and not be too, you know, uptight, and do you know what I mean? Just try to have a bit of fun. It's just paint. I'll be right back with part 2 anyway. I'm waffling on. I need to go and get a coffee. I'll see you soon, my friends.